Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 34 of Be With Me. We're following Paul, and we're going to catch a glimpse of his heart. I'm going to call today Gaining a Hearing. He's been going through in chapter 9 of 1 Corinthians, spends all this time saying, I deserve a salary and payment, and a salary is my right. And then he says at the end of a long 14-verse argument, he says, I'm not going to take it. The reason is he has something bigger in mind. He has a reward, which is to win people. So listen in as we continue in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. I'm going to start in verse 17. For if I do this of my own will, I will have a reward. But if not of my own will, I am still entrusted with a stewardship. What then is my reward? That in my preaching I may present the gospel free of charge, so as not to make full use of my right in the gospel. So he's saying I have the right to be paid, but I'm going to give it free of charge. Why? Here it is, verse 19. For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. So his big goal is to win people. Verse 20, to the Jews I became a Jew in order to win the Jews. To those under the law I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law I became as one outside the law, not being outside the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might win those outside the law. To the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I had become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I may share with them in its blessing. So here he is. He's saying that his reward isn't just preaching in a pay-free kind of a way, but his reward equals the winning of people. And so he's strategically thinking about people and how to gain a hearing, number one, and how to speak to them specifically, each group, the law group, the Jew group, the Gentile group, to the weak. And he's strategically thinking with the end in mind is to win them and how he can get them to that spiritual finish line, if you will. He starts by saying to the financially oriented, I'm not going to make full use of my rights financially, and I'm going to try not to put any stumbling block to those who are financially oriented, lest that financial stumbling block, or that financial requirement that you should pay your pastor, lest that become a stumbling block to them. By the way, Jesus is a big enough stumbling block alone, so Paul doesn't want to put himself in there as well. So you see Paul in here, the heart of Paul. You see him serving and trying to win everybody that he can. He's taking these people groups very seriously. He starts with the financially oriented and he said, so I can win them, I'm going to give them the gospel free. I want to win them becoming their servant, and not just sort of their willy-nilly servant, but their strategic servant. So I'm going to identify different people groups and their key or critical element, like the cornerstone of their thinking and the cornerstone of their identity, using my discernment, use my discernment magic, and work on that strategic point. And he gives a couple of people groups. One are these financially oriented group. Then he talks about the Jews. And to those, he says, I became a Jew in order to win the Jews. Now, Paul was already a Jew. What he's saying is I'm going to be like them in my understanding, not necessarily in the behavior, but he's saying I walked a mile in the Jews' shoes. I walked a mile in the non-Jews' shoes. I walked a mile in the weak person's shoes. I identified them. I learned what makes them tick, and I began to think like them so that I could strategically win them to Christ. That's the big prize. So then he says to those outside the law, the non-Jews, I got inside their heads too, and made a strategy for them. To the weak person, he talked about that ad nauseum in chapter 8 about eating food sacrificed to idols, and he went the extra mile, if you will, not to be a stumbling block to the weak. His concern was that the weak person would be destroyed or wounded or sinned against by my cavalier attitude towards him. So he gives extra care to the weak. He's giving extra care to those outside the law. He's giving extra care to the Jews. He summarizes it by saying, by all means, I might save some. And you're not talking about nefarious means here, but he's talking about strategic efforts with insight and with an end goal in mind. So he wants to bless. He wants to benefit a people group that he's thought about beforehand, that he has an end in mind for, and then he has this middle strategy ready to do whatever it takes, by all means, to save them. He takes it seriously, he gives effort, he gains a hearing, and he has a laser beam on others. So here's the practical points. Just there's a million here, but the one is, who are you trying to serve today? Is it your spouse? Is it a 2-year-old? Is it someone that's financially judgmental? Is it someone that's religiously judgmental? Is it someone that you serve an activity, share an activity with and an interest with? Who are the people, or who is the person you're trying to win, or maybe just keep? So for Paul, people were his prize. Are people your prize? Or is your prize fitness, or success, or adventure, or comfort, or entertainment, or knowledge, or power? For Paul, the prize was people. And it was such a prize that it wasn't a passive, just willy-nilly live your life and hope people show up. No, it was an active effort with the goal of winning people. So the question is, what people group or person are you strategically, sacrificially engaging with, maybe tolerating their foibles? Who are you trying for? Who are you trying to understand? Who are you trying to bless? Who are you trying to benefit? Who are you trying to win? So today, each day in this podcast, I like to think about ending up with something on your chest. Pin it to your chest. And here's the thought today, is I pray that the Lord would put a people group, or more specifically, a person on your heart. And that person, pinned to your chest today, make a strategy like Paul did. Thanks for listening.